All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and get started. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us for our monthly Fund It Fast chat. We appreciate your time, and we're working hard to get information for you that's helpful in a brief and interactive format. So everybody's microphones have been unmuted. So let me go ahead and advance the slide. Everybody's microphones have been unmuted, so please feel free to ask questions as needed throughout the presentation, or if you are at your computer, you can also use your chat box to submit questions. We just ask that please keep in mind that everyone on the call can hear your background noise. So if you're listening from somewhere that's really noisy, go ahead and mute yourself so everyone can hear the information clearly. Also, we would love to know who's joining us for our fast chats. So if you join at some point, we might ask you who you are and where you're calling from. So I believe I see one person here that I'm not familiar with. There's a Domingo Gonzalez here. Can you tell us where you're calling from, Domingo? Can you hear us okay? Okay, well, maybe we'll check in with you in just a couple more minutes, or please feel free to go ahead and chat in and let us know where you're calling from. We would love to hear from you. Okay, I'll go ahead and move along. Without any further delay, I would love to introduce to you, we have a special guest speaker this morning. His name is Jason Lewis of Southern California Gas Company. Jason is the Senior Market Advisor for Clean Transportation at SCG. So in English, that means Jason's job is to assist partners with finding and leveraging dollars to support upgrades for municipal and school district fleets and a lot more. So I will go ahead and turn it over to you, Jason.
Thank you, Rochelle. Good morning, everyone. First of all, I want to thank you myself for coming on this early Tuesday morning. I'm here to talk about finance specifically and some of the technologies behind natural gas and how it might fit or continue to fit into your fleet option. Next slide, please. So the three topics I want to discuss today is natural gas vehicles, kind of what they are now and why they might work for your fleet. A little bit about renewable natural gas and how that fits into the overall discussion about greenhouse gas reduction as well as NOx and pollution. And finally, the topic I'm sure most of you are here to find out about is incentives and grants for natural gas vehicles. So if you don't already know why you would consider natural gas vehicles, I'm here to give you some ideas. So there's a lot of air quality and environmental advantages over diesel. And one of the things I like to point out is that natural gas vehicles are really an alternative to diesel trucks and for heavy duty applications and medium and heavy duty applications. And we're not here to talk about replacing other alternative fuels. We at SoCalGas believe that there is an opportunity for all alternative fuel technologies to find their niche in displacing traditional fossil fuels. And diesel is a very big part of our mobile source pollution in a lot of our air districts. And so that's really what we're here to talk about is the heavy duty and medium heavy duty applications. And the next generation compressed natural gas trucks are as clean as the electric right now with power plant equivalent emissions. And the nice thing about CNG is there's a very similar range to what a lot of fleets are used to with their diesel vehicles. Even some new generation diesel trucks can get over 1,000 miles to a tank. And the CNG vehicles that I'm here to discuss are available today. You can purchase them from a dealer, and they're very affordable when you take total cost of ownership and some of the grants and incentives are taken into context. Next slide, please. And there's a lot of applications for municipal fleets. I'm sure many of you are familiar with CNG transit buses and refuse trucks. There's been some penetration into school buses, but there's also a lot of new fueling options for pickups, vans, and semi-trucks that some of you may operate. And these are some of the older generations were put into use, but there's also some newer applications with some newer tank, CNG tank applications that have been new to the market. And that's what's really exciting now is there a lot of different options for retrofitting some existing CNG and also maybe even expanding some of the other fleets and new purchases. Next slide, please. So some of the newest and most exciting technology for the natural gas vehicles is what we call our low NOx or our power plant equivalent emissions. And when I say power plant equivalent, I mean the average emissions in the Southern California generation is on the order of 0.01 to 0.02 NOx for the fuel. And that's exactly where these engines are. And they're actually rated to the certification of 0.02 NOx, but they actually perform even better than that in real world applications under the testing done by the University of California, Riverside. So for those who are familiar with some of the diesel nomenclature, the CNG come in the very similar sizes. So you have for your buses, refuse, and cement trucks, you're looking at the 8.9 liter technology. It's been around for about 3 to 4 years now. And we're very excited to talk about it. I'd love to talk individually if you're interested about 11.9 liter applications. So for some of the really big trash trucks and maybe even some transfer vehicles, if your municipality operates them, this is a brand new technology that just came out in March from Cummins Westport at the 11.9 liter size. And this is really for some of the heavy duty applications. And it has the same horsepower and the same range as some of the diesel. So even if you don't operate this vehicle, but you're looking to encourage it in your area with maybe some of your vendors, I'd be more than happy to talk about this technology at length. But it's the newest and one of the most exciting technologies we have. Next slide, please. And the CNG fueling infrastructure is also a really fun thing to talk about because it has a really robust footprint in California. A CNG truck during a road test to really show some of our decision makers nationwide the capabilities of CNG, made it from Long Beach all the way to Washington, D.C. in under a week on the nation's fueling infrastructure. And as you can see from the map on the screen, that there's a lot of CNG, not just the public stations listed that you can use. I know some folks have probably used CNG in a private application, and there's still funding available for that, and that I'll discuss a little bit later. And one of the things to note that for folks who've been looking at alternative fuels and some of the concerns, I can tell you that CNG does not have time-dependent pricing. So whether you're fueling during the day or overnight, there isn't a different cost for CNG. Now, there might be different costs for the power that is powering a compressor, and we can talk about the difference between time fill and fast fill technology if you're interested in your own infrastructure. But really, the fuel itself does not have a cost depending on when you use it. Next slide, please. And something that we've been using, I should say, a term we've been using a lot, as you can see, is the game changer. And we call the combination of renewable natural gas and the low NOx engines that I spoke about the game changer for our technology. And it can reduce, obviously you can see the numbers here, reduce natural NOx emissions by 90%, and with RNG vehicle greenhouse gas emissions, and we're talking about methane here, by over 80% of conventional fuels. Next slide, please. And hopefully if folks have heard about renewable natural gas, but if you haven't, I'll give a quick synopsis. This is human captured and created gas. So we're looking at farms, waste landfills, wastewater treatment plants, dairies, and it's being captured gas that would otherwise have gone to the atmosphere, and then it is cleaned up, and the methane is extracted, and it is put into the pipeline, either to SoCalGas or your local natural gas provider, or even it can be used locally for vehicle fueling. And that number, we haven't updated it in a year or so, but last I've heard, we're approaching 70% of natural gas that is used in the transportation sector is RNG, Now, not all of it comes from California. SoCalGas is working with private parties to develop that. But the important thing to know is that if you're sourcing renewable natural gas, you're removing GHGs from the atmosphere. And next slide, please. And something that's really exciting to talk about is the carbon intensity of natural gas and how bio-CNG, as it's called here, or renewable natural gas is the industry nomenclature, is a negative carbon fuel. I mean, this isn't my graph. This is actually from the California Air Resources Board. As you can see, the green line there is 0 carbon intensity. And the RNG can range anywhere from obviously in the low 20s to close to negative 300 CI, which is the carbon intensity. It's a normalized value for all fuels. And this is the most carbon negative is dairy, which I know there's a lot of in San Joaquin Valley. This number comes from out of California, but it is important to note that the ARB is talking about this fuel in a very positive light, and it is available, and it is with the federal and state renewable credits. It can actually be equivalent to cost or even cheaper in many cases than what we call fossil natural gas or your traditional natural gas. Next slide, please. And now on to the most fun thing to talk about, which is free money. And grants and incentives are a huge part of developing the alternative fuel infrastructure in California. And it's important to know that there are many different types of funding. I'm going to focus on the statewide and the local air district because they're the most available right now. There often is some federal funds available, but they're usually very specific, and oftentimes they're administered through some of your local air districts who apply on your behalf for some of that federal funding. Next slide, please. And I'll start with the statewide programs. And the easiest to apply for and receive in terms of paperwork is what we call the NGVIP, or the Natural Gas Vehicle Incentive Program. It's administered through the Transportation Department at UC Irvine, and you can get up to $25,000, and it's dependent on the class of the vehicle. So for your if you're replacing light duty with CNG, you're looking at as little as a couple $1,000s. But you're looking for your municipal sized buses and trucks, you're looking probably in the neighborhood of anywhere from $15,000 to $25,000 per NGV. You don't need to get rid of the vehicle, which is often the case, as we'll talk about in some of the other programs. Unfortunately, because it's such a popular and easy to apply program, it has been oversubscribed, and lots of folks are working with the California Energy Commission to more fund this program. And so I'll keep you updated if you're curious about this. The next program, which is through the state, is the HVIP. So the acronym stands for something it's a pretty old acronym, so we just call it HVIP. The important part about it is the V, which is the voucher. So through a dealership that works with HVIP, they'll do the paperwork for you, and you can get anywhere from $10,000 to $40,000 for low-NOx CNG. For this program, because it is financed through the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund, any fleet over 3, which is probably everybody on the call, requires an RNG contract, and there are a number of different providers. It is a fairly easy process to undertake. I can help with that if folks have any questions. But there is close to $10 million budgeted for low NOx through the HVIP program. And next slide, please. This is a specific program I wanted to mention for those who are interested in looking at school bus funding. There is an AB 617 Community Air Protection Funds that's available for school buses. There's Prop 39, and there's also I'm trying to avoid using the company's name, so we all know who we're talking about. But the diesel defeat device NOx settlement that is coming out also provides some funding for school bus replacements. And if you're curious about this, I can connect you with your representative for local air district to look at funding for that. The next slide, please. And now specifically for our San Joaquin Valley folks, there is a public benefit grant program that is available for new alternative fuel vehicle purchases that is specifically for municipal fleets. And I can get you in touch with them if you're curious about that. For your, this is for your usually some of your smaller fleets. I mean, not smaller fleets, just smaller size vehicles. And then the AB 617 Community Engagement and Protection Program, which I'm sure a lot of you've heard about, is opening soon. I've been talking with San Joaquin Valley about when that should come out, and I've been told within the next month or so. And then there's the truck voucher program for some of your heavy duty vehicles if you have them. And that's a similar voucher to the HVIP done through the dealer. And we can talk more about that if you have any questions. Next slide, please. And for our Mojave folks, they have opened their Carl Moyer program. It's open until it's depleted. It is a little bit of a more lengthy application process, and if you're interested in it, for cleaner than required technologies, usually requires a scrappage depending on the vehicle type. I can help you with that application. And then there is the AB 2766 funds, which is a mobile source emission reduction program, similar to other programs in other air districts. And it can help fund up to 25% of the total cost of your vehicle, and also some of the other programs listed here. Some of you may have worked with them before. If you have more questions, I can put you in touch with folks at Mojave MD. But similar to Carl Moyer, you can't fund things that are actually already required by code or law. It's really for going beyond the required compliance. And next slide, please.
Okay. Well, actually, I think that's, yeah.
Well, that's right. That's it.
So, yeah, that's it. So I really appreciate you for joining us this morning, Jason. I know you've certainly opened my eyes to a lot of different alternatives, not just electric. Would you be able to kind of walk us through maybe how you've been able to leverage different types of funding or different types of funding sources to kind of help support municipalities, with upgrading their fleets? Or I believe the term you used was stacking. Am I right?
Yes, exactly. So depending on the type of the project and depending on where you're located, oftentimes you can use numerous funds that I mentioned to stack the funding together. Now, you can't generally obviously exceed the total cost of the vehicle, but depending on the type of program, you can get 50, 60, 75, even 100% of the total cost paid for by different funding programs. Generally, it's up to the different program rules. But for example, the mobile source funding are usually allowed to, and I've done it before, where you can apply for funding under those programs and then also apply for Carl Moyer program funding for infrastructure and vehicles. So if you're curious about that, I can talk more specifically. Again, it depends on the vehicle types and or whether or not it's going to be a public access station. If you're talking about infrastructure, there's always more money available if you're going to make it available to the public. So yeah, if there's any questions, we can talk about how you can possibly stack the different funding and possibly use some NGVIP with maybe some Carl Moyer money. It just depends on where the funding is coming from the local air district, and how that can be used and commingled with other funding sources.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you so much, Jason. Do we have any other questions, or anyone else have anything that they'd like to share or follow up on? Or I don't have any chats here. I do have Jason's information on the screen for anyone that might be joining just via phone call only. Again, it's Jason Lewis from Southern California Gas. His email address is jlewis, LEWIS2 @semprautilities.com. Telephone number is area code 213-244-8179. Or you can find additional information at www.socalgas.com/NGV. You can also connect with the SJV CEO. We can also connect you with Jason or help you with some other information. There's a number of different ways you can contact us. You can email us at info@sjvcleanenergy.org or give us a call at 877-748-0841. Recording of this chat will be posted on the SJV CEO website. That's sjvcleanenergy.org. later on today. Any questions that we maybe were not able to get through or get to during the chat responses will be posted on our website as well. I'll do one last check for any questions. Anything?
And while you're testing for that, yeah, I just wanted to quickly say that it was mentioned on my slides, but I like to say that SoCal Gas is available to help connect you with not only these applications, but also to do them for you at no cost. So we're here really to facilitate the adoption of clean transportation and make it as easy as possible, especially for our municipal partners who are often very resource strapped. So let us know how we can help.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Jason.
You're welcome. Thank you guys. Appreciate it.
I think we will remain on the call for another 8 minutes until 10:30 in case, you know, something may come up and you want to ask or follow up on. Just to give you a heads up, we are doing this call monthly. So every month on the second Tuesday, we'll be coming to you with hopefully some new information that you find helpful or we're able to point you in a good direction. Next month, we will have another brief call on September 11th. We'll be discussing energy efficiency projects and best practices for schools with our partners at the Southern California Regional Energy Network. So be sure to join us. We'll be sending out some more information about that in the coming weeks. Please feel free to share it with anybody that you think might benefit from that information. And I hope everybody has an awesome rest of the day. Again, we'll be on here for about another 7 minutes just in case there are any additional questions.